Okay, firstly, thank you for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the biomarker we have to be able to test newborns for ALD. Unfortunately, it's not possible to measure plasma very long chain fatty acids in all newborns because of the sample type. So they've been looking for a marker where we can measure it in the blood spots that we collect routinely already from newborns. And the marker that's been shown to be the most useful is called C260 lysophosphatidylcholine, or C260 lyso-PC for short. And this has been shown to be a reliable test in several studies in the US. It's been shown to be high in all males and some females with ALD. The sensitivity of this is similar that you would have for very long chain fatty acids in females, so about 70 to 85% of females would be picked up, and the rest have normal levels and wouldn't be picked up by this test. It's also high in babies with various other peroxisomal defects such as PPVs. So that's shown by this part of the graph. And what's good about this test is that all the newborn screening labs in the country already have equipment that can do this test. They just need setting up correctly. And as I say, the samples are already collected from all newborns when they're 5 days old. So these samples are already waiting, ready for as many tests as we're allowed to do. So in America, they've already started screening in a few states. We heard a bit more about this earlier. So in New York, they started about 2.5 years ago. They've now screened about 570,000 babies. They've identified 18 boys and 21 girls with ALD already. And there were 9 other babies who had high levels of C260 lyso-PC, but were found not to have ALD. And out of those 9, 8 had peroxisome biogenesis disorders, and 1 had a high level, but this was unexplained because they didn't seem to have any problem with their peroxisomes. So this one baby so far counts as a false positive with this test. In Connecticut, they started screening last October. I'm particularly interested in what they're doing in Connecticut because they're using exactly the same methods that we plan to use in the UK. So this pilot's been running since last October, and they're going live officially mid-2016. I was in contact with them last week, and they're almost ready, so this is going to happen soon. And we heard earlier about California beginning to screen soon as well, and that they'll be able to backdate that, which is brilliant.
Connecticut just had their second ALD.
Have they? Yeah. I emailed them last week, and it was good to talk about that now. Yeah. So I'm interested in what Connecticut are doing because they're using the same method that Chris Haynes described, which is the one I'm using. They've screened 23,000 babies so far. The first baby they found with ALD was a baby boy, shown in this picture, and this was back in January. And I've got a quote from the Brian's Hope website that was from their parents. They said, "We're so very thankful that ALD is now part of newborn screening. It has changed what could have been a terminal diagnosis later on into a diagnosis where our boys have a chance. Because ALD is a genetic disease, our other little boy, who's 2, has been tested and is positive for ALD as well. We would not have had any idea of the chance of him having ALD without his little brother's screening until it was too late. So one newborn screening test has saved both their boys." And I know there's many people here today who know firsthand what a difference an early diagnosis can make. So this was the first boy that they found. Since then they've identified another newborn boy and a newborn girl. When I spoke to them last week, they were awaiting the confirmatory tests on those 2. There have also been 3 other girls who had borderline high levels, but when they repeated the blood spot collection, those levels had gone down to normal. And so those are classified as normal because in females with ALD, the levels would continue to stay high across life. So those were classed as normal. and they haven't found any babies with any peroxisomal biogenesis disorders yet. So in 2 years, since I last spoke at this meeting, so 2 years ago I was pregnant with my second daughter. So since then I've had a baby. And also in the time that I was off, lots of scientists around the world have been measuring C26 lyso-Pc in newborns, establishing whether it's the best thing to be measuring, and making the analysis faster and more accurate. So my plan is to measure it in newborn blood spots using a column and tandem mass spectrometry. The column is there to separate it from other interfering compounds which could cause more false positives if we don't get rid of them first. And the tandem mass spectrometer is to detect the right thing and to measure it. So this is based, as I say, on the method published by Chris Haynes at the CDC in 2012. And in 2014, he managed to get the runtime down from 3.5 minutes per sample down to 1 minute per sample. And it's currently used for screening in Connecticut and is working well there. So this just gives a quick view about the practical work I'm doing. Here we've got the tandem mass spectrometer in the corner. And this screenshot is of our tuning page. So the red peaks show that I've been looking for C26 lyso-Pc and I've been getting a good signal. Some of these parameters here, and also on other pages, there's lots more things to optimise, are all the numbers I've been tweaking to do with different temperatures in different parts of the equipment and voltages, flow rates, collision energy, all sorts of things, so I can make sure that we're getting the best signal possible, so that once we measure it in blood spots that we get accurate results. So the next stage for me is to measure it in samples. So the CDC have prepared blood spots where they've got liquid blood and they've added known amounts of this compound into it at low, medium and high levels, and then use that blood to make lots of blood spots. So I can use this to, say, measure each one, say, 20 times in one day to see if I get the same results each time. I can measure the same thing every day for 20 days and see if I get all the same results. So that will give us an idea about the precision of the method in our lab. Anne Moser has also kindly provided some anonymised venous samples from adults with ALD, so that's males and females, and also patients with other peroxisomal disorders. So I can measure these and I can compare my results to hers to prove that I'm measuring the same thing and that our method works. So once I've done all that, I'm looking to measure it in blood spots from people in the UK to show that it works for our population. And this is important so that if it hopefully gets approved and we can do a pilot for newborn screening, that we have an idea before we start about what numbers to expect in the general UK newborn population, and what the results will mean if we see higher levels. So I'm applying for ethical approval at the moment, and this is to anonymise 3,000 recent blood spots samples in males and females, so I can see what the levels are in their general newborn UK population. I'm also applying for ethical approval to ask children, young people and their parents, say age 25 or younger, who have ALD, that's males and females, or another peroxisomal disease, to ask to retrieve their newborn blood spots from storage. UK labs tend to store blood spots for at least 5 years. Some store them, as we do in Bristol, for longer than that. After the children are about 25 years old, it's unlikely that we'd still have blood spot samples from that long ago. So that's why I've set the age as it is there. So once I've got written permission from everybody who wants to take part, then I would measure C26 lyso-Pc in these samples, and then compare these results to the levels that I found in the general newborn population. So there are a lot of hoops to jump through for me to get ethical approval, and these are all very important to make sure that I'm following all the right rules and codes of conduct and all the rules and regulations surrounding this. So as part of this process, I've been filling in a very long application form, and I've prepared some participant information sheets which explain more about what I'm doing. I've also prepared draft versions of 2 consent forms, one of which would be for a parent to complete on behalf of a child, and one would be for young people aged 16 to 25 to consent for their own sample to be used in the study. ALD Life have kindly said that I can run a focus group tomorrow from 11 to 11:30, where I'd be hoping that if anybody would be interested in talking to me about it, I basically would need people to read through these draft documents and to feedback about which parts of them are clear, which parts are a bit confusing, just so I can get some feedback and to make them as good as I possibly can before I approach the ethics committee. So to summarise, internationally a lot of progress has been made in the last few years. Progress is picking up pace in the UK, especially this year, now that I'm back from maternity leave and now that the economic study is being done, which we'll hear about a bit more about in a minute. More lab work is needed to show that the test works well in the UK population, which is what I'm currently working on. And I'm hoping some of you might be interested to come and talk to me a bit tomorrow. Thank you.